Eliza Bennet stared at it, her sister's laughter still ringing in her ears. They'd done it as a joke, signed her up as a mail-order bride to some rancher in godforsaken Wyoming. They expected silence, maybe mockery. Instead, he'd said yes. A stranger wanted her, plain, invisible Eliza, the daughter nobody looked at twice. Now she had 72 hours to decide. Stay in this house where she'd always be nothing, or step onto a train heading west into a life that terrified her. Some choices aren't choices at all. They're escapes. If you're watching this, follow Eliza's journey to the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The Bennett farmhouse smelled like burned bread and disappointment. Eliza stood at the kitchen window, hands submerged in dishwater that had gone cold an hour ago, watching her sisters parade across the yard in their Sunday dresses. Caroline, the eldest, had her blonde hair pinned in those elaborate curls that took an hour to set. Margaret wore the blue silk that made her eyes look like summer sky. Even Ruth, barely 17, had that effortless grace that made men trip over their own boots at church socials. Then there was Eliza, 23 years old, brown hair that wouldn't hold a curl if her life depended on it. A face her mother once described as pleasant enough, in the same tone people used for overcooked vegetables. Not ugly, just unremarkable, forgettable. The kind of woman people's eyes slid past on their way to something prettier. "Eliza," her mother's voice cut through the kitchen. "Those dishes won't wash themselves." "Yes, ma'am." She scrubbed at a plate that was already clean, watching through the window as Caroline laughed at something their neighbor's son said. Watched him look at Caroline like she was something precious. Nobody had ever looked at Eliza that way. "She's wool gathering again." That was Margaret's voice drifting in from the parlor. "Honestly, Mother, what are we going to do with her?" "Hush." Their mother's reply was quieter, but Eliza heard it anyway. She'd gotten good at hearing things she wasn't supposed to. "We'll find her something, a widower perhaps, someone who needs a housekeeper more than a wife." The plate slipped from Eliza's hands, clattering into the basin. She steadied herself against the counter, waiting for the familiar ache in her chest to pass. It didn't. That night, her sisters hatched their plan. Eliza heard them whispering in the bedroom they shared, all four of them crammed into a space meant for two. She kept her eyes closed, breathing steady, pretending sleep while they giggled and schemed. "It's harmless," Caroline insisted. "Just a bit of fun." "But what if someone actually responds?" Ruth sounded uncertain. To Eliza, Margaret's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Darling, these mail-order advertisements are for desperate men on the frontier. Even they have standards." More laughter. Eliza pulled the thin blanket over her head, trying to block it out. "I still have that newspaper from last month," Caroline continued. "The one with all those advertisements from out west. Cowboys looking for wives." She dropped her voice into a theatrical drawl. "Hard-working rancher seeks respectable woman for marriage. Must be of good character and strong constitution." "Oh, do it!" Margaret clapped her hands. "Can you imagine? Some poor rancher expecting a proper wife and getting our Eliza?" "Caroline, that's cruel." Ruth at least had some conscience. "It's a joke, silly. He won't respond anyway, and if he does, we'll simply tell him there was a mistake. Where's the harm?" The harm was in how easily they did it, how little they thought of her, how completely invisible she'd become in her own family. 3 days later, the letter arrived. Eliza brought in the mail like she did every afternoon, mostly bills and the occasional letter from their aunt in St. Louis. But there, among the usual correspondence, was an envelope addressed in unfamiliar handwriting. Miss Eliza Bennet. Her hands trembled as she turned it over. The return address made her stomach drop. C. Rourke, Wind River Ranch, Wyoming Territory. "What's that?" Caroline appeared at her elbow, too casual, eyes too bright. Eliza's fingers tightened on the envelope. "It's for me." "From Wyoming?" Caroline's voice pitched higher. "Oh, Eliza, you didn't actually—" "Didn't what?" Their mother entered the hallway, Margaret and Ruth trailing behind. The whole family, suddenly very interested in Eliza's mail. "Nothing, Mother." Caroline reached for the letter, but Eliza stepped back. "It's mine." Her voice came out stronger than she expected. She took the letter to the only place she could be alone, the barn, up in the hayloft, where she used to hide as a child. Her hand shook so badly it took 3 tries to open the envelope. The letter inside was written on good paper, the handwriting clean and practical. Miss Bennett, I received your response to my advertisement. I'll be direct, as I expect you prefer the same. I'm 32 years old, owner of the Wind River Ranch in Wyoming Territory. I have a son, age 7. My wife died 3 years ago. I'm not looking for romance. I'm looking for someone capable and sensible to manage my household and help raise my boy. In return, I can offer security, a roof that doesn't leak, and treatment with respect and fairness. The work is hard. The winters are harsh. The nearest town is 12 miles, and it's not much to speak of. But the land is mine, the house is sound, and I pay my debts. If you're willing, I'll send money for the train fare. If you're not, I'll understand and wish you well. Respectfully, Caleb Rourke. Eliza read it 3 times. Then she sat in the hay-scented darkness and cried, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming shock of being seen, even by a stranger, even in such practical terms. Someone had said yes to her. Eliza, her mother's voice echoed across the yard. Where is that girl? She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her apron pocket. Then she climbed down from the loft and walked back to the house where her sisters were waiting, their faces bright with barely suppressed glee. Well, Margaret demanded, what did it say? You already know what it said. Eliza met Caroline's eyes. Since you sent it, Caroline had the decency to flush. It was just a joke. Yes, I understand. Eliza walked past them into the kitchen. Her hands were still shaking, but her voice stayed steady. He said yes. Silence crashed through the room. What? Their mother's face went pale. The rancher, Mr. Rourke, he accepted my application. She almost laughed at the absurdity of it. He's offering marriage. Absolutely not. Her mother's voice cut like a knife. This has gone too far. Caroline, write to him immediately and explain the mistake. What mistake? The words came out of Eliza's mouth before she could stop them. Her mother blinked. What? What mistake should Caroline explain? Eliza's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept talking. That her plain sister isn't worthy of even a practical arrangement with a stranger? Eliza, you can't possibly be considering… Why not? Something was cracking open inside her chest, something that had been locked down for 23 years. What exactly am I staying for? To wash dishes until my hands crack? To sleep in a crowded bedroom and listen to you discuss which widower might be desperate enough to take me? How dare you? Her mother's face flushed red. She's having hysterics, Margaret declared. Eliza, be sensible. I am being sensible. Eliza pulled the letter from her pocket, smoothed it on the table. Mr. Rourke is offering exactly what you've all said I should expect, a practical arrangement with someone who needs a housekeeper. The only difference is he's being honest about it. Caroline stepped forward, and for a moment something like guilt flickered across her face. Eliza, I'm sorry. We didn't think… No, you didn't. Eliza looked at her sisters, these beautiful, thoughtless girls who'd never known what it felt like to be invisible. But you've actually done me a favor. You can't go to Wyoming. Ruth's voice was small. You don't know anything about him. I know he was honest in his letter. I know he needs help. And I know… She stopped, swallowed hard. I know that staying here means becoming exactly what you all expect. The maiden aunt. The extra mouth to feed. The daughter nobody wanted. That's not true, her mother said, but the protest was weak. Isn't it? Eliza met her mother's eyes and saw the answer there. Write him back. Tell him I accept. Eliza, Mother, I'm 23 years old. I'm not asking your permission. The words felt strange in her mouth, like speaking a foreign language. I'm telling you my decision. She walked out of the kitchen before anyone could respond, her legs carrying her back to the barn, back to the hayloft, where she finally let herself fall apart. What had she just done? The question circled her mind for the next 3 weeks while preparations were made. Her mother tried, half-heartedly, to talk her out of it. Her sisters oscillated between guilt and fascination. The neighbors whispered behind their hands at church. But the train ticket arrived, along with another letter. Miss Bennett, I've arranged passage for you on the Union Pacific, departing St. Louis on the 15th. The journey will take 4 days. I'll meet you at the Wind River Station. Bring practical clothing and sturdy boots. Leave anything delicate or impractical behind. I look forward to meeting you. C. Rourke. Eliza packed her trunk with shaking hands. She owned almost nothing of value. A few plain dresses, a winter coat that had been Ruth's before it got too worn, a book of poetry her father had given her before he died. She left her mother's pearl earrings, the ones she'd always hoped might be passed to her. They were meant for beautiful daughters. The morning she left, her family gathered on the porch. An awkward, silent assembly. "Write to us," her mother said finally. "Of course." Eliza climbed into the wagon that would take her to the station. Caroline grabbed her hand through the window. "Eliza, I'm sorry. Truly. If I'd known you'd actually—" "It's all right." And strangely, it was. "You gave me a way out. I'm taking it." The train station in St. Louis was chaos, steam and noise, and hundreds of people pushing toward different futures. Eliza clutched her ticket and carpet bag, following the crowd toward the western platform. "First time out west, miss?" She turned to find an older woman beside her, weathered face kind beneath a practical bonnet. "Yes, ma'am." "Traveling alone?" "I'm meeting someone in Wyoming." The woman's eyes sharpened with understanding. "Ah, one of those." But there was no judgment in her voice, just recognition. "Word of advice. The frontier's not like back east. Out there, folks judge you by what you can do, not where you came from. Use that." Eliza thought about that as the train pulled away from everything she'd ever known. Thought about it as Missouri blurred into Kansas, Kansas into Nebraska. Thought about it through sleepless nights in cramped passenger cars, through meals of hard bread and questionable coffee. The landscape changed, flattened, opened up into something vast and terrifying. On the third day, she sat next to a young mother with two small children. The woman looked exhausted, her dress patched and repatched. "You heading to Wyoming too?" the woman asked. "Yes. Wind River. We're going to Cheyenne. My husband's got work on the railroad." She shifted the baby on her lap. "You got family there?" "I'm getting married." The woman's eyebrows rose. "You know him?" "No." A long pause. Then the woman laughed. Not unkindly, just the laugh of someone who understood desperation. "Well, hell, at least you're honest about it. Most girls make up some romantic story." "There's nothing romantic about it," Eliza said. "He needs a housekeeper and a mother for his son. I need a home. That's the arrangement." "Fair enough." The woman studied her. "You look sensible. That'll serve you better than prettiness out here." She nodded toward the window where endless prairies stretched to the horizon. "This land doesn't care what you look like. It only cares if you survive." The train lurched, and the baby started crying. Eliza found herself holding the woman's other child, a little girl, maybe 3 years old, while the mother settled the infant. "What's your name?" the little girl asked, studying Eliza with solemn eyes. "Eliza. That's pretty." Something loosened in Eliza's chest. "Thank you. Will you have babies with your new husband?" "Sarah!" the mother's face flushed. "That's not polite." But Eliza smiled, genuinely smiled, maybe for the first time since leaving Missouri. "I don't know, maybe. He has a son already." "How old?" 7. The little girl nodded seriously. "That's a good age, old enough to help." Out of the mouths of babes. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. The train rocked and clattered through darkness, carrying her toward a future she couldn't picture. She pressed her forehead against the cold window and let herself imagine worst-case scenarios. Caleb Rourke could be cruel, violent, a drunkard. The son could hate her. The house could be falling apart. The whole thing could be a terrible, irreversible mistake. But even in her darkest imaginings, she couldn't make herself regret leaving. The fourth day dawned clear and brutally cold. Mountains rose in the distance. "The Rockies," the conductor announced. They'd reach Wind River by afternoon. Eliza changed into her best dress, which wasn't saying much, and tried to tame her hair. Failed. Gave up. Stared at her reflection in the train's grimy window and saw what Caleb Rourke would see. A plain, tired woman who looked older than 23. She wondered what he looked like. Wondered if he'd be disappointed. The train slowed. The conductor called out, "Wind River! Next stop, Wind River!" Her stomach twisted. This was real. This was happening. The station was barely a station, just a wooden platform and a small building that looked like a strong wind could knock it over. A handful of people waited on the platform, and Eliza scanned them with rising panic. Which one was he? Then she saw him. He stood apart from the others, hands in his coat pockets, hat pulled low. Tall, taller than she expected. Broad-shouldered, maybe 35, though the hard lines of his face made him look older. Dark hair, clean-shaven jaw set in what looked like permanent displeasure. And his eyes, gray as winter, were already locked on her. She knew. Somehow, impossibly. She knew this was Caleb Rourke. The train jolted to a stop. Eliza forced her legs to move, climbing down the steps with her carpet bag clutched in one hand. Her trunk would be unloaded separately. She walked toward him across the platform, aware of every eye watching, every whisper. The train hissed steam behind her like a dragon. He didn't move, just watched her approach with those cold, assessing eyes. She stopped 3 feet away. "Mr. Rourke?" "Miss Bennett." His voice was deep, rougher than she expected. Western. He touched the brim of his hat. "Welcome to Wind River." Up close, she could see the details her mind had missed from the train. The scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the sun-weathered skin, the calluses visible on his hands. This was a man shaped by hard work and harder weather. "Thank you." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "It's good to finally, your trunk the brown one?" She blinked at the interruption. "Yes?" "I'll get it loaded. Wagon's this way." He turned and walked toward the baggage area without waiting to see if she'd follow. Eliza stood there for a moment, feeling the first crack in whatever romantic notion she'd still been harboring. This wasn't a meeting, it was a transaction. Fine. That's what she'd signed up for. She followed him to a sturdy wagon hitched to 2 horses. He loaded her trunk without help, lifted it like it weighed nothing, and secured it with practiced efficiency. "Climb up." He nodded toward the wagon seat. She managed it with only moderate clumsiness, grateful her skirts weren't as full as Caroline's ridiculous fashion plates. Caleb swung up beside her, taking the reins, and clicked his tongue at the horses. They rolled away from the station in silence. Wind River, the town, consisted of maybe 20 buildings clustered around a main street. A general store, a saloon, what looked like a church. People stopped to stare as they passed. Caleb didn't acknowledge any of them. "How far is the ranch?" Eliza asked finally. 12 miles northeast. He kept his eyes on the road. "Your letter mentioned a son. Thomas. He's 7. Stays with my foreman's wife during the day. And at night? With me." He shot her a sideways glance. "That's why you're here." "Right. The arrangement. She was hired help with a fancy title." "What happened to your wife?" She felt him stiffen beside her. "Childbirth. 3 years ago. The baby didn't make it either." "I'm sorry." "It was 3 years ago," he repeated, like that somehow made it matter less. The road climbed into rougher country. Trees gave way to open grassland, grassland to rocky outcroppings. The wind picked up, sharp and cold, cutting through Eliza's coat like it wasn't there. "You cold?" Caleb asked. "I'm fine." "There's a blanket behind the seat." She retrieved it, wrapping it around her shoulders. The gesture was practical, not kind. Everything about this man was practical. "You know how to cook?" he asked. "Yes." "Clean?" "Yes." "Handle children?" "I helped raise my younger sisters." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "The house is clean but needs a woman's touch. Thomas is a good boy but needs structure. Can you provide that?" "I can." "Good." He fell silent again. Eliza studied the landscape, trying to find beauty in it. The mountains were stunning, she supposed, in a harsh, indifferent way. Everything here seemed bigger, emptier, more unforgiving than Missouri. "What do you expect from this marriage?" The question came out before she could stop it. Caleb's jaw tightened. "I expect you to run my household, care for my son, and manage things so I can focus on the ranch. I expect honesty and hard work." "And what should I expect from you?" He looked at her then, really looked at her for the first time. Those gray eyes swept over her face, cataloging and dismissing in one glance. Food on the table, a roof that doesn't leak. No violence, no drinking, no mistreatment. Respect, as much as can be given. He paused. "And privacy, if you want it." Privacy. She understood what he meant. Separate bedrooms, a marriage in name only. Something in her chest twisted, though she couldn't say if it was relief or disappointment. "That seems fair," she managed. "Good." Another mile passed in silence. "Why did you agree?" Eliza asked suddenly. "To me, I mean, there must have been other responses to your advertisement." His mouth quirked, not quite a smile, but close. "There were. 17, in fact." "Then why—" "Your letter was honest." He shrugged. "The others were full of poetry and promises. Yours just said you could cook, clean, and handle ranch life. No false expectations." "I didn't write that letter," Eliza admitted before she could think better of it. Caleb's head turned sharply. "What?" "My sisters wrote it, as a joke." The whole story came tumbling out. Her family's cruel prank, their shock when he responded, her desperate decision to come anyway. When she finished, she braced for anger. Instead, Caleb laughed. It was a rusty sound, like he didn't use it often, but it was genuine. "So you're here on a dare," he said. "I'm here because I chose to be." Eliza met his eyes. Whatever their intentions were, this is my decision now. He studied her again, and this time she saw something shift in his expression. Not warmth exactly, but maybe respect. "All right then." He turned back to the road. "We'll make it work." The ranch appeared as they crested a hill, a sprawling operation of corrals, outbuildings, and a two-story house that looked solid and well-maintained. Cattle dotted the surrounding fields. Men worked in the distance, their shouts carrying on the wind. "This is it," Caleb said. "Wind River Ranch. 2,000 acres, 50 head of cattle, 8 hired hands." Eliza tried to process the scale of it. This wasn't a farm. This was an empire. A small figure burst from the house as they approached. A boy with dark hair and his father's gray eyes, sprinting toward the wagon. "Pa!" Caleb's entire demeanor changed. His face softened, his posture relaxed. "Hey, Tom." The boy skidded to a stop beside the wagon, staring up at Eliza with open curiosity. "Is she the new Ma?" "Miss Bennett," Caleb corrected gently. "She'll be staying with us." "Hi." Thomas tilted his head. "You're not very pretty." "Thomas!" Caleb's voice sharpened, but Eliza surprised herself by laughing, really laughing. "No, I'm not, but I make very good biscuits." The boy's face lit up. "Better than Mrs. Garrett's?" "I guess you'll have to judge that yourself." "Come on!" He grabbed her hand, tugging her toward the house. "I'll show you everything." Eliza climbed down from the wagon, letting this enthusiastic child pull her forward. Behind her, she heard Caleb unloading the trunk, but she didn't look back. The house was bigger inside than it looked. Clean but sparse, functional but cold. No curtains on the windows, no rugs on the floors, no warmth anywhere. It was a house that had forgotten how to be a home. Thomas dragged her from room to room, narrating with the confidence of a tour guide. "This is the kitchen. Pa says it needs better storage. This is the parlor. We never use it. This is my room. I have a magnifying glass. This is—" He stopped at a closed door. "This was my ma's sewing room. We don't go in there." "All right," Eliza said softly. He led her upstairs. "This is Pa's room, and this—" He pushed open another door. "This is yours." The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the eastern pasture. Someone, Caleb probably, had left a pitcher of water and fresh linens on the bed. "It's perfect," Eliza said, and meant it. Footsteps on the stairs announced Caleb's arrival. He set her trunk inside the door. "Thomas, let Miss Bennett settle in. Can she make biscuits tonight?" "We'll see." But there was affection in his voice. "Go help Mike with the horses." The boy thunders down the stairs, and then it was just the two of them in this small room. "I'll leave you to unpack," Caleb said. "Supper's usually around 6, kitchen stocked. Make what you want." "All right." He started to leave, then paused. "Miss Bennett?" "Yes?" "Welcome to Wind River." This time, he almost meant it. After he left, Eliza sank onto the bed, staring at the walls of her new room. Her new life. What had she done? But when she looked out the window at the vast Wyoming sky, something in her chest loosened. Out here, nobody knew she was the plain daughter, the overlooked one, the joke. Out here, she could be anything she chose to become. The first biscuits burned. Eliza stood in the kitchen at 5:30 the next morning, staring at the charred remains in the cast iron pan, and wanted to cry. The stove was different from the one back home, hotter, meaner, with a temperament she hadn't figured out yet. She'd woken before dawn, determined to prove herself useful, and instead had produced something that looked like coal. Those don't look like good biscuits. She spun around. Thomas stood in the doorway, still in his nightshirt, hair sticking up at odd angles. No, Eliza admitted. They don't. He patted across the cold floor and peered into the pan. Pa says the stove runs hot. You gotta watch it. I'm learning that. Can you make more? She looked at the boy's hopeful face and felt something shift inside her. Yes, but you have to help me. His eyes went wide. Really? Really? Get dressed first, though. It's freezing. He disappeared in a flash of bare feet and enthusiasm. Eliza scraped the burned biscuits into the slop bucket and started again, this time adjusting the damper like Thomas suggested when he returned, fully dressed and vibrating with importance. Ma used to let me crack the eggs, he said, climbing onto a chair. Your ma was smart. Eliza handed him an egg. Go ahead. He cracked it with excessive force, shell fragments everywhere, but she didn't correct him, just fished out the pieces and let him crack another. They were pulling the second batch from the oven, golden this time, actually edible, when Caleb's boot sounded on the stairs. He stopped in the kitchen doorway, taking in the scene. Thomas covered in flour, Eliza's hair escaping its pins, the counter dusted with cornmeal. We made biscuits, Thomas announced. I helped. Caleb's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those gray eyes. I can see that. The first one's burned, Thomas added cheerfully. But Miss Bennett said that's how you learn. She's right. Caleb moved to the coffee pot, poured himself a cup. You get dressed for school? Not yet? Go. Mike's driving you in 20 minutes. Thomas scrambled down from the chair and bolted upstairs. Caleb sipped his coffee, watching Eliza over the rim of the cup. You don't have to get up this early, he said. When should I get up? Whenever you want. You're not a hired hand. No, I'm your wife. The word still felt strange in her mouth. Wives make breakfast. He set down his cup. We had an agreement. I don't expect Mr. Rourke. She met his eyes. I didn't come here to be useless. If I'm going to live in this house, I'm going to contribute to it. Unless you'd rather I didn't. A long pause. Then the corner of his mouth twitched. The biscuits are fine. It wasn't a compliment exactly, but it wasn't a complaint either. He ate 3 of them with butter and honey, then headed out to the barn. Thomas thundered back down, wolfed down his own breakfast, and disappeared into a wagon with Mike, a grizzled ranch hand who tipped his hat to Eliza but didn't speak. Then the house was empty. Eliza stood in the kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes and the settling silence, and realized she had no idea what to do next. Back home, there'd always been something: her mother's demands, her sister's messes, the endless cycle of cooking and cleaning for a family of 6. Here, in this big, sparse house, she felt unmoored, purposeless. So she started cleaning. Not because it needed it, Caleb clearly kept things tidy, but because she needed to understand the space. She scrubbed floors that were already clean, reorganized cupboards that were already organized, learned where everything lived. The house revealed itself slowly, well-built but unloved, functional but cold, like Caleb himself. She found his wife's sewing room by accident, the door she'd been told not to open hanging slightly ajar. Inside, everything was exactly as it had been left 3 years ago. Fabric folded on shelves, a half-finished quilt stretched across a frame, a rocking chair by the window. Eliza backed out quickly, closing the door with shaking hands. That afternoon, she walked to the nearest outbuilding, a bunkhouse where the ranch hands stayed. A woman emerged as she approached, wiping her hands on her apron. 40-something, sturdy, with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. You must be the new missus, the woman said. I'm Helen Garrett. My husband Mike works for Caleb. Eliza Bennett. Eliza Rourke, I suppose. Suppose is right. Helen looked her up and down. You settling in? Trying to. Helen's expression was unreadable. Come in. I'll make coffee. The bunkhouse was smaller than the main house, but warmer somehow, lived in. Helen poured coffee into chipped mugs and sat across from Eliza at a scarred wooden table. How much did Caleb tell you about his wife? Helen asked bluntly. Just that she died in childbirth. Sarah, pretty little thing, delicate, came from Denver, thought ranch life would be romantic. Helen's mouth twisted. It ate her alive. She hated it here. The isolation, the work, the cold, hated Caleb for bringing her. By the end, they barely spoke. Eliza's hands tightened around her mug. Why are you telling me this? Because you should know what you're walking into. Caleb's a good man, but he's broken in ways he won't admit. And this place, she gestured at the window, at the endless prairie beyond. This place doesn't forgive weakness. I'm not weak. Didn't say you were. Helen studied her. But you're not what I expected either. Most mail-order brides come in with stars in their eyes. You look like you know exactly what you signed up for. I do. Good. Helen refilled their coffee. Then maybe you'll last. It wasn't exactly encouragement, but it was honest. Eliza appreciated that. Over the next week, she learned the rhythms of the ranch. Caleb left before dawn, worked until dark, came home exhausted and silent. Thomas attended school in town 3 days a week, spent the other days underfoot, full of questions and energy. The ranch hands kept their distance, watching her with barely concealed skepticism. She cooked meals that Caleb ate without comment. She cleaned rooms that didn't need cleaning. She tried to talk to Thomas about his schoolwork and got one-word answers. Everything felt provisional, temporary, like she was playing house in someone else's life. Then the first test came. She was hanging laundry on the line behind the house, sheets that fought her in the wind, snapping like sails, when she heard shouting from the barn. Male voices, angry. Eliza dropped the sheet and ran. Inside the barn, 2 ranch hands faced off, both red-faced and bristling. One was Mike's son, barely 20. The other was older, Mexican, with scarred knuckles and murder in his eyes. "Say it again," the older man growled. "Say it to my face." "I said you're doing it wrong." The punch came fast. The younger man went down hard, blood spurting from his nose. The Mexican advanced, fists raised. "Stop!" Eliza's voice cracked like a whip. Both men froze, turning to stare at her. Mrs. Rourke. The Mexican, his name was Javier, she remembered, straightened. "This doesn't concern you. You're fighting in my husband's barn. It concerns me." She stepped between them, heart hammering. "What's this about?" "He called me." "I don't care what he called you." She looked at the younger man, still on the ground. "Get up. Go to the house. Helen will fix your nose." "I'm not taking orders from your employer's wife?" She raised her eyebrows. "Yes, you are. Go." He went, shooting Javier a poisonous look. Eliza turned to Javier. "And you. If you have a problem with how someone's working, you tell Caleb. You don't use your fists." Javier's jaw worked. "With respect, ma'am, you don't understand how things work here." "Then explain it to me." He blinked, clearly not expecting that. "What?" "Explain what I don't understand. I'm listening." A long pause. Then, grudgingly, "The kid's green, doesn't listen, does things his own way and screws up the work for everyone. So teach him." "I've tried. Try harder." She held his gaze. "You're what, 15 years older than him? More experienced? Then act like it. Fighting him just makes you both look like children." Something shifted in Javier's expression. Not quite respect, but maybe the beginning of it. "Yes, ma'am. Good." She turned to leave, then stopped. "And Javier? Thank you for not hitting him again." "Ma'am? You could have. You were angry enough, but you stopped when I asked. That took control." She left him standing there stunned and walked back to the house on legs that shook so badly she could barely stand. What had she just done? She had no authority here, no right to give orders. She was the mail-order bride, the outsider, the woman nobody wanted. But when Caleb came home that night, Mike was waiting for him on the porch. Eliza listened from the kitchen, hands stilled in dishwater. "Your wife broke up a fight today," Mike said. "Javier and my boy." Silence. Then, "Anyone hurt?" "Just pride." She handled it. Sent them both packing with their tails between their legs. "She did?" Caleb's voice was neutral, unreadable. "Yes, sir. Thought you should know." Footsteps. The front door opening. Caleb appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in his work clothes, dusty and tired. Mike says you stopped a fight. Eliza kept washing dishes. They were being stupid. I told them to stop. And they listened? Eventually. He moved into the room, leaned against the counter. You didn't have to do that. They were fighting in your barn. Someone had to. Most women would have run the other way. She looked at him then, meeting those gray eyes. I'm not most women. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or reassessment? No, you're not. He left without saying more, but that night at dinner, he asked her opinion on which fields to plant for winter wheat. It was a small thing, easily missed, but Eliza noticed. The next day, Javier tipped his hat when he saw her. The day after that, 2 of the other ranch hands actually spoke to her, just, "Morning, ma'am," but it was something. She was becoming real to them, visible. But the town was a different story. Helen convinced her to come to the Sunday social at the church. You need to meet people, she insisted, despite Eliza's protests. So Eliza wore her best dress, which still wasn't very good, and let Caleb drive her and Thomas into Wind River. The church was a simple building, white-painted and earnest. Inside, it was packed with people who all turned to stare when Eliza entered. That's her, someone whispered. The mail-order bride. Poor thing, plain as flour. I heard she answered an advertisement, desperate. Eliza kept her chin up, following Helen to a pew. Caleb sat on her other side, Thomas between them, seemingly oblivious to the whispers. After the service, the women descended. Mrs. Rourke! A blonde woman in an elaborate hat smiled with too many teeth. I'm Mrs. Patterson. Welcome to Wind River. Thank you. It must be quite an adjustment coming from, where was it? Missouri. Oh, Missouri. Like it was another planet. Well, Wyoming is certainly different, rougher. Not everyone adapts. Her eyes swept over Eliza's plain dress, her work-roughened hands. But I'm sure you'll do your best. Other women clustered around, all false smiles and sharp eyes. They asked invasive questions wrapped in politeness. How did she meet Caleb? Was she close to her family? Did she have much experience with children? Eliza answered with the minimum required, feeling herself shrinking under their scrutiny. This was worse than her sister's mockery. At least that had been honest cruelty. This was death by 1,000 cuts, each one delivered with a smile. I think it's wonderful, a young woman said brightly. How brave of you to come all this way for a stranger, very practical. The word landed like a slap. Practical. Not romantic, not desirable, just practical. Eliza excused herself and escaped to the yard where Thomas was playing with other children. She stood in the cold air, trying to breathe through the tightness in her chest. They're all terrible. She turned. A woman stood there, older than Eliza, maybe 40, with graying hair and kind eyes. I'm sorry, Eliza said. The church ladies. They're terrible gossips with nothing better to do than pick apart anyone new. The woman held out her hand. I'm Dr. Margaret Chen. I run the medical practice here. You're a doctor. Surprised? Dr. Chen smiled. Most people are. Chinese woman doctor in Wyoming. I'm the town scandal. Or I was until you showed up. Despite everything, Eliza laughed. I'm Eliza. I know. And I know what they're saying about you. Dr. Chen's expression sobered. Ignore them. Half of them married for money, the other half for land. At least you're honest about your arrangement. Does everyone know? It's a small town. Everyone knows everything. Dr. Chen gestured toward the church. But here's what they don't know, whether you'll last. Sarah didn't. She withered here like a hothouse flower in frost. They're all waiting to see if you'll do the same. I won't. Good. Dr. Chen studied her. You know what I think? I think you're tougher than you look, and this town needs more tough women. It was the first genuine kindness anyone had shown her since Helen's brutal honesty. Eliza felt something loosen in her chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Come by the practice sometime. I could use help with record keeping, and you look like you can read. I can. Then we'll talk. Dr. Chen headed back toward the church, then paused. And Eliza? That dress doesn't do you any favors. Come by my house tomorrow. I have some things that might fit better. She was gone before Eliza could respond. The ride home was quiet. Thomas chattered about his friends, Caleb drove in silence, and Eliza stared at the passing landscape, processing. They were unkind, Caleb said suddenly. Eliza looked at him, surprised. What? The women at church. I saw their faces. His jaw was tight. They were unkind. It's fine. It's not. He clicked his tongue at the horses. Sarah used to come home from those socials in tears. They made her feel small. I'm not Sarah. No. He glanced at her. You're not. They didn't speak again until they reached the ranch. But when Eliza climbed down from the wagon, Caleb caught her arm. What you did yesterday? With Javier and the kid. He cleared his throat. That was good. Smart. The men respect that. Thank you. I mean it. His hand dropped. You're doing well here. Better than, well, you're doing well. It wasn't poetry, but coming from Caleb Rourke, it felt like a victory. That night, after Thomas was in bed, Eliza sat in the kitchen darning socks by lamplight. Caleb came in, poured himself coffee, and sat across from her. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. Why did you really come here? She set down the sock. I told you, my sisters. I know what your sisters did. I'm asking why you said yes. He leaned forward. You could have refused. Could have stayed in Missouri. Found someone local eventually. Why get on a train to nowhere for a man you'd never met? Eliza thought about lying, making it sound noble or romantic. But Caleb deserved honesty. Because in Missouri, I was invisible, she said quietly. I was the plain daughter, the extra mouth, the one nobody wanted. Every day reminded me of what I wasn't, pretty enough, charming enough, worth enough. She met his eyes. Your letter offered me something different, not love or romance, but a chance to be useful, needed, to build something instead of just existing in someone else's shadow. Caleb was quiet for a long time, then, I understand that. Do you? Sarah married me because I had land, status. She thought ranch life would be adventurous. His voice went flat. She was wrong, and when she realized it, she hated me for it, hated this place. By the end, we were strangers living in the same house. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's over. He stood, carried his cup to the sink, but I won't make that mistake again. I won't pretend this is something it's not. I'm not asking you to. He nodded, started to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, you're not invisible here. The words settled around her like a blanket. Over the following weeks, Eliza found her footing. She learned to manage the stove's moods, to predict Thomas's questions, to read the subtle shifts in Caleb's expression that meant he'd had a hard day. She helped Dr. Chen with medical records twice a week, earning both money and friendship. She started making small changes to the house, curtains for the kitchen, a rug in the parlor, a shelf for Thomas's growing collection of rocks and feathers. The ranch hand stopped treating her like a ghost. Mike's wife taught her to shoot. Every ranch woman needs to know, Helen insisted. Javier showed her how to doctor a sick calf. Even the Mexican cook, Maria, started leaving recipe cards for her to try. But Caleb remained distant. He was never unkind, never dismissive. But there was a wall around him that Eliza couldn't breach. They ate meals together, discussed Thomas's schooling, coordinated household needs, but they never talked about anything real, never touched, except by accident. At night, Eliza lay in her narrow bed and listened to him move around in his room across the hall. So close, so unreachable. She told herself it didn't matter. This was the arrangement, but some treacherous part of her heart wanted more. Then November came, and with it, the first real cold. Eliza woke one morning to frost thick on the windows and Thomas's excited shouts. Snow? Miss Eliza, it's snowing! She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and looked out. The world had transformed overnight, white and clean and brutally beautiful. Get dressed warm, she called to Thomas. Extra socks. By the time she made it downstairs, Caleb was already bringing in extra firewood. Storm's coming, he said. Real one. Mike heard it from the telegraph operator in town. How bad? Bad enough. We're moving the cattle to the near pastures, securing the outbuildings. You should stock up. Food, water, medical supplies. We might be stuck inside for days. Eliza spent the morning preparing. She baked bread, made stew, filled every container with water. Helen came by with extra blankets and advice. "Keep the fires going," she said. "And if the wind gets too bad, don't go outside. People get lost 20 feet from their own doors in whiteouts." "Is it really that dangerous?" Helen's expression was grim. Last year, the Pattersons' youngest son went to check on the chickens during a storm. They found him 3 days later, frozen to death 50 yards from the coop, so yes, it's that dangerous. The storm hit at dusk. 1 minute, snow was falling gently. The next, the wind rose to a scream and the world disappeared into white chaos. Eliza stood at the window, watching the barn vanish behind sheets of snow. "Is Pa coming back?" Thomas's voice was small. "Of course he is." But Eliza's heart hammered. Caleb and the ranch hands were still out there, somewhere, bringing in the last of the livestock. An hour passed. Then 2. Thomas fell asleep on the sofa, wrapped in blankets. Eliza kept the fire burning, the coffee hot, her eyes on the door. Finally, it burst open. Caleb stumbled in, followed by Javier and Mike, all 3 of them crusted with ice and snow. "Everyone's accounted for," Caleb said, his voice rough. "Stock's secured. We're set." Eliza helped them out of their frozen coats, poured hot coffee, brought the stew she'd kept warming. The men ate in exhausted silence. Then Mike and Javier headed to the bunkhouse. Caleb sat by the fire, thawing out, while Eliza checked on Thomas. "He was worried," she said quietly, sitting across from Caleb. "I know." Caleb's hands were wrapped around his coffee cup, shaking slightly. "I tried to get back sooner. You're here now. That's what matters." He looked at her then, really looked, like he was seeing something new. "You were worried too." It wasn't a question. "Yes," Eliza admitted. "Why?" "Because—" She stopped, searching for words that wouldn't reveal too much. "Because Thomas needs you. The ranch needs you." "Is that all?" The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. Before Eliza could answer, Thomas stirred on the sofa, mumbling in his sleep. The moment broke. "I should get him to bed," she said, standing. "Eliza." Caleb's voice stopped her. "Thank you. For today. For everything." She carried Thomas upstairs, her heart still racing from what had almost been said. The storm lasted 3 days. 3 days trapped inside with Caleb and Thomas, the world reduced to the walls of the house and the howl of wind. They played cards, told stories, read books aloud. Thomas taught Eliza a complicated game involving marbles. Caleb fixed a broken chair leg. They existed together in close quarters, and something shifted. Small moments accumulated, Caleb's hand brushing hers as he passed the salt. The way he laughed at one of Thomas's terrible jokes. The night Eliza woke to find him adding wood to her fire, making sure she stayed warm. On the 3rd day, the wind finally died. Caleb and the ranch hands dug out, assessed damage, checked on the stock. Minor losses, mostly. They'd been lucky. That night, Caleb found Eliza in the kitchen, kneading bread dough. "Storm's over," he said. "I noticed." He moved closer, close enough that she could smell snow and leather. "These past few days, yes? It was nice. Having you here, not just as help, as—" He struggled for words. "As company." Eliza's hand stilled in the dough. "I thought we had an arrangement." "We do." His voice was rough. "But maybe arrangements can change." Her heart stuttered. "Into what?" "I don't know yet." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I'm not good at this. Sarah used to say I was made of stone. Maybe she was right." "You're not stone." Eliza wiped her hands on her apron, turned to face him. "You're careful. There's a difference." "Careful," he repeated. "Is that what you call it?" "What would you call it?" "Afraid." The admission seemed to cost him. "Afraid of doing this wrong again." Eliza's throat tightened. "Caleb—" "Forget it." He stepped back. "I shouldn't have said anything." "No, wait." She caught his arm before he could leave. "I'm afraid too." He stopped. "I'm afraid this is temporary," she continued, words tumbling out. "That one day you'll realize you made a mistake bringing me here. That I'm not enough, not pretty enough, not accomplished enough, not whatever it was you really wanted." Caleb turned to look at her, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. You think I want you to be different? His voice was low, intense. Eliza, you stopped a fight between men who could have killed each other. You won over my son in a day. You survived that storm without complaint and kept us all fed and warm. You're the strongest woman I've ever met, and I... He stopped, jaw working. You what? She whispered. But whatever he'd been about to say, he swallowed it back. We should take this slow. How slow? A ghost of a smile. Slower than I want to. He left her standing there, heart racing, hands shaking, the bread forgotten. Something had changed. Something fundamental and terrifying and wonderful. The arrangement was becoming something else. Whether that was good or catastrophic, only time would tell. The days after that conversation moved differently, like the world had tilted slightly off its axis. Caleb didn't avoid her, but he didn't seek her out either. They existed in a strange limbo, closer than strangers, not quite anything else. December brought colder weather and longer nights. Thomas made paper chains for the holidays, draping them across the parlor while chattering about what he hoped to find under the tree. Eliza threw herself into preparations, baking, cleaning, sewing a new shirt for Thomas from fabric Dr. Chen had given her, and trying not to think about Caleb's unfinished sentence. She was in the kitchen one afternoon, elbow deep in pie dough, when Helen burst through the door without knocking. There's trouble, Helen said, breathless. Patterson's making moves. Eliza wiped her hands. What kind of moves? The land kind. He's been buying up notes from the bank, calling in debts. Got the Morrison Ranch last week, paid half what it was worth. Now he's sniffing around here. Why would he want this ranch? Water rights. The Wind River runs straight through Caleb's land. Patterson's been trying to get control of it for years. Helen's face was grim. He made Sarah miserable back when she was alive. Kept suggesting Caleb sell, kept pointing out how hard ranch life was for her. I think he hoped she'd convince Caleb to give up. But she died. Yes. And Caleb's held on ever since, out of pure stubbornness, if nothing else. Helen grabbed Eliza's shoulders. Listen to me. Patterson's a snake. He'll smile and act friendly, but he's looking for weakness. Don't give him any. I won't. Helen studied her face. You care about this place. It wasn't a question, but Eliza answered anyway. Yes. Good. Because Caleb needs someone in his corner who isn't afraid to fight. Patterson showed up 2 days later. Eliza was hanging laundry when she heard the horse, a fine black gelding that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. The rider was equally fine, tall, silver-haired, dressed like he was attending a gentleman's club instead of visiting a working ranch. Mrs. Rourke. His smile was all teeth. Harold Patterson. I own the Triple P, south of here. Mr. Patterson. She didn't offer her hand. My husband's out with the stock. Actually, I came to see you. He dismounted, moving closer. I wanted to welcome you properly to the territory. My wife was quite taken with you at church. Liar. His wife had been one of the worst gossips. That's kind, Eliza said neutrally. I also wanted to express my condolences about your situation. Her hand stilled on the clothesline. My situation? Coming all this way only to find yourself on a struggling ranch with a difficult man. His voice dripped false sympathy. It can't be easy. The ranch isn't struggling, isn't it? Patterson's smile sharpened. Caleb lost 12 head last winter. His water rights are being contested by the Simmons family. And between you and me, the bank's getting nervous about his loans. I don't discuss my husband's business with strangers. Of course not. But as a friend, and I hope we can be friends, Mrs. Rourke, I feel obligated to mention that I'd be happy to make Caleb a fair offer. Take this burden off his shoulders. Give him a chance to start fresh somewhere easier. There it was, the real reason for his visit. This ranch isn't for sale, Eliza said. Everything's for sale at the right price. Patterson moved closer, and she smelled expensive cologne mixed with something rotten underneath. A woman like you, educated, sensible, must see how precarious your position is here. One bad winter and you could lose everything. Whereas if Caleb sold to me, you'd have security, maybe even enough to return to civilization. I am civilized, Mr. Patterson, and I'm exactly where I want to be. His expression flickered. Just for a second, the mask slipped, and she saw cold calculation underneath. Then the smile returned. Of course, I meant no offense. He tipped his hat. But the offer stands. When things get difficult, and they will, remember that you have options. He rode off, leaving Eliza standing in the cold yard with her heart hammering. When Caleb came home that night, she told him everything. He listened without interrupting, his face getting harder with each word. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "He's right about some of it," Caleb said finally. "The water rights are being contested. The bank's breathing down my neck. Last winter nearly broke us. Then we fight back." "We?" He looked at her sharply. "Did you think I'd just stand aside?" Eliza moved closer. "This is my home too now. My future. You think I'm going to let some pompous land grabber take it? It's not your fight. Like hell it isn't." The curse felt good in her mouth. "I didn't come here to watch you fail, Caleb. I came here to build something, so either tell me how to help or get out of my way." Something blazed in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or admiration. "You really mean that?" "Every word." He studied her face for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. A real smile, the first she'd seen from him. "All right then," he said. "Let's fight." They started that night. Caleb spread maps and documents across the kitchen table. Deeds, water rights claims, loan papers. Eliza had never seen anything like it, but she was good with numbers and better with logic. "The Simmons claim is based on an old survey," Caleb explained. "They say the river's natural course puts it on their land, not mine. But that survey's from 1867, before the channel shifted. Can we prove when it shifted? Maybe, if we can find documentation. What about witnesses? Anyone who's lived here long enough to remember?" Caleb's eyes lit up. "Old Tom Bridger. He's been in these parts since the 50s. Lives up in the hills now, barely comes to town." "Then we need to talk to him." They worked until past midnight, Thomas long asleep upstairs. At some point, Caleb made coffee. At another, their hands brushed over the same document, and neither pulled away immediately. "Why are you doing this?" Caleb asked finally. "I told you." "No, I mean really. You could walk away. Patterson would probably pay your way back to Missouri. You'd be free." Eliza set down her pencil. "I don't want to be free. I want to be here." "Why?" "Because—" She searched for words that wouldn't reveal too much. "Because for the first time in my life, I matter. What I do makes a difference. Thomas needs me. The ranch needs me. You—" She stopped. "I what?" His voice was low, dangerous. "You see me," she whispered. "Not as a burden or a joke or a practical solution. You see me." Caleb reached across the table, his rough hand covering hers. "I see you, Eliza. I've seen you since the day you stepped off that train looking terrified and determined all at once." Her breath caught. "Caleb—" "I'm going to kiss you," he said, "unless you tell me not to." She didn't tell him not to. He stood, moved around the table, pulled her to her feet. His hands framed her face, rough and gentle at once. When his lips met hers, it was nothing like she'd imagined, not smooth or practiced, but real. Hesitant at first, then deeper, like a man remembering how to feel. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "How to let someone in again. Then we'll figure it out together. What if I fail? What if I hurt you? What if you don't?" She pulled back to meet his eyes. "You can't live your whole life afraid of making the same mistakes. Sarah said I was cold, unfeeling, that loving me was like loving stone." "Sarah was wrong." Eliza's voice was fierce. "You're not cold, you're careful, and there's nothing wrong with that." He kissed her again, and this time there was less hesitation, more hunger. His hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer, and she felt the solid warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart. A floorboard creaked upstairs. They broke apart, both flushed and breathless. "Thomas," Caleb said, "we should—" "Yes," but he didn't let go of her hand. "Tomorrow. We'll ride up to see old Tom. Together." "Together," Eliza agreed. That night, lying in her bed, she couldn't stop smiling. Something had shifted. Not completely, not perfectly, but undeniably. The wall between them had cracked. The next morning, they left Thomas with Helen and rode into the hills. The terrain got rougher as they climbed, pine trees giving way to scrub brush and exposed rock. Caleb led the way, occasionally pointing out landmarks. "You handle a horse well," he observed. "Helen taught me. Said every ranch woman needs to ride." "Helen's right about most things." He glanced back at her. "How are you doing? It's a hard ride." "I'm fine." And she was. The cold air felt good, the movement exhilarating. This was so far from Missouri it might as well be another world. They found Old Tom's cabin in a protected valley, smoke rising from the chimney. The man who emerged was ancient, weathered like old leather, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Caleb Rourke," Tom said, "and you brought company." "My wife, Eliza." "Wife?" Tom's eyebrows rose. "Heard you got married. Didn't believe it." He studied Eliza. "You're not Sarah." "No, sir." "Good. That girl was pretty but useless. You look like you might survive a Wyoming winter." He gestured to the cabin. "Come in. Tell me why you're really here." Inside, over bitter coffee, Caleb explained about the Simmons claim and Patterson's circling. Tom listened, nodding occasionally. "The Simmons are fools. That river's been on your land for 30 years at least. I remember when it shifted. Big storm in '56 changed the whole drainage. Before that, it ran south through what's now Patterson's property." "Can you testify to that?" Eliza asked. "In court? Against the Simmons and Patterson both?" Tom laughed. "Girl, I'd be dead before the trial ended. Those men don't play fair." "Then we need documentation," Caleb said. "Old surveys, maps, anything." "There might be something." Tom stood, moving to a battered trunk in the corner. "I did some surveying work back then, kept copies." He rummaged through papers yellow with age. "Here, map from 1855 showing the original river course. And here, notes from the Army Corps about the flood damage in '56. Eliza's heart leaped. "This is perfect. If it holds up in court." Tom handed over the documents. "But you're fighting powerful men, Caleb, Patterson especially. He doesn't like losing." "Let him not like it," Caleb said grimly. "I'm not giving up my land." They rode back as dusk was falling, the documents safely wrapped in oilcloth. Eliza's mind was already working through the next steps, filing the evidence, finding a lawyer, building their case. "You're good at this," Caleb said suddenly. "At what?" "Strategy, problem solving. Sarah used to panic when things got difficult. You get focused." "Panic doesn't help anything." "No." He slowed his horse, waiting for her to draw alongside. "Eliza, about last night, don't." She cut him off, then softened her voice. "Don't apologize or take it back, please." "I wasn't going to." His eyes found hers. "I was going to say we should probably talk about what happens next." "What do you want to happen?" "I want—" He stopped, jaw working. "I want things I didn't think I'd want again. Things that scare the hell out of me." "Like what?" "Like waking up next to someone who gives a damn if I come home. Like having a real partner instead of a housekeeper with a fancy title. Like—" He swallowed hard. "Like being loved again." Eliza's throat tightened. "Caleb, I'm not good at this," he continued roughly. "I'm going to mess up, say the wrong thing, shut down when I should open up. But I'm trying, Eliza. For the first time in 3 years, I'm actually trying." She reached across the space between their horses, found his hand. "Then we're both trying. That's enough." They rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence, hands linked, something settling between them that felt like the beginning of truth. But when they reached the ranch, trouble was waiting. The main barn was burning. Flames climbed into the darkening sky, men running with buckets, horses screaming in panic. Caleb spurred his mount forward, Eliza right behind him. "What happened?" Caleb shouted at Javier, who was leading horses out of danger. "Don't know. The whole thing went up at once." They fought the fire for hours. Bucket brigades from the well, wet blankets smothering smaller flames, men risking their lives to save the animals. By the time they got it under control, the barn was a smoking ruin. Caleb stood staring at the wreckage, his face like carved stone. "Could have been an accident," Mike said quietly. "Lantern knocked over, maybe." "Or it could have been Patterson," Javier added, "sending a message." "You have proof?" Caleb's voice was dangerous. "No, but—" "Then we don't make accusations." Caleb turned away. "Salvage what you can. We'll rebuild." The men dispersed slowly. Eliza approached Caleb, who stood with his back to her, shoulders rigid. "Talk to me," she said softly. "Nothing to talk about." Caleb, "I said there's nothing to talk about." He spun to face her, and she saw the fury in his eyes, and beneath it, fear. "This is what I was trying to tell you. This is what happens when you fight men like Patterson. They don't just beat you in court, they destroy everything you've built. You don't know it was him. Who else would it be? It could have been an accident. Don't be naive." His voice cut like a knife. "Nothing out here is an accident. Everything has a cost." She stepped closer, refusing to back down. "Then we pay the cost. We rebuild. We fight harder. You should leave." The words came out flat, final. "Before this gets worse." Eliza felt like she'd been slapped. "What?" "You heard me. Pack your things. I'll pay your way back to Missouri. Patterson was right. You deserve better than this." "Don't you dare." Her voice shook with anger. "Don't you dare make this decision for me. I'm trying to protect you." "I don't need protection. I need you to stop running away." She grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. "Something bad happened. Fine. We deal with it. But you don't get to push me away because you're scared." "I'm not scared. You're terrified." Her voice gentled. "You're terrified that if you let yourself care about me, you'll lose me like you lost Sarah." "But Caleb, I'm not her. I'm not fragile. I'm not going to break." "You don't know that. Neither do you." She moved closer, close enough to feel his breath. "But we won't find out if you keep pushing me away." His hands came up, gripping her arms. "What if I can't do this? What if I let you down?" "Then you let me down, and we figure it out together." She reached up, touching his face. "Stop trying to protect me from life, Caleb. I chose this. I chose you. Stop fighting me on it, Eon." Something cracked in his expression. He pulled her against him, burying his face in her hair, and she felt him shake. "I can't lose you," he whispered. "I can't go through that again." "You won't." She held him tight. "I'm not going anywhere." They stood there in the wreckage, holding each other while smoke drifted around them, and Eliza felt something fundamental shift. This wasn't just attraction anymore. This was deeper, more complicated, more real. When they finally pulled apart, Caleb's eyes were wet. "I'm sorry," he said, "for trying to push you away. Don't do it again." "I'll try." He managed a weak smile. "No promises." "Good enough." They walked back to the house together, and for the first time, Caleb took her hand in full view of the ranch hands. A statement, a claim, a choice. Inside, Thomas was waiting up, tear-stained and terrified. "Pa, I saw the fire. Is everyone okay?" "Everyone's fine." Caleb knelt down, pulling his son into a hug. "The barn's gone, but we're all safe." "Was it bad men? Like in the stories?" Caleb glanced at Eliza over Thomas's head. "We don't know yet, but it doesn't matter. We're going to be fine." "Because Miss Eliza's here now?" "Yeah." Caleb's voice was rough. "Because she's here now." That night, after Thomas was asleep, Caleb knocked on Eliza's bedroom door. "Can I come in?" She opened it, still dressed, knowing she wouldn't sleep. "Of course." He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. "I need to tell you something." "All right. Sarah and we got married too young. I was 24, she was 19, pretty and sweet and completely unprepared for ranch life." He sat on the edge of her bed, staring at his hands. She tried, at first, but she hated it. Hated the isolation, the work, the endless cold. And I was too proud to admit it wasn't working, too stubborn to let her go back to Denver, even for visits. Eliza sat beside him, listening. By the time she got pregnant with Thomas, we barely spoke. She spent all her time in that sewing room, avoiding me, avoiding everything. His voice cracked. When she went into labor with the second baby, she was already weak, depressed. Dr. Chen said she'd given up before the labor even started. "Caleb, she died hating me. And the baby died because she didn't have the strength to fight. All because I was too stubborn to see what I was doing to her." Eliza took his hand. "That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? I brought her here. I kept her here. I chose the ranch over her happiness. You can't know that's what killed her. Childbirth is dangerous. I killed her spirit long before childbirth killed her body." He looked at Eliza, eyes raw. "And tonight, When I saw that barn burning, all I could think was that I was doing it again, dragging someone into danger because of my pride, my stubbornness. Stop. Eliza squeezed his hand hard. Listen to me. I am not Sarah. I chose this life with my eyes open. Nobody dragged me here. Nobody's keeping me here against my will. This is my choice, Caleb. Mine. But if something happens to you, then something happens. That's life. She turned to face him fully. You can't control everything. You can't prevent every bad thing. All you can do is be honest with me, trust me to make my own decisions, and fight beside me when things get hard. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't deserve you. Probably not. She smiled. But you're stuck with me anyway. He kissed her then, desperate and grateful and full of everything he couldn't say. She kissed him back, pouring all her own fears and hopes into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. Stay with me tonight, he whispered. Just stay. She did. They lay together on her narrow bed, fully clothed, arms around each other, talking until dawn, about Sarah and the ranch, about Eliza's family and Missouri, about Thomas and the future, and whether they had any chance of beating Patterson. Somewhere around 3 a.m, Caleb said, I think I'm falling in love with you. Eliza's heart stopped. You think? I'm terrified to say it for certain. Like if I admit it out loud, something will take you away. Nothing's taking me away. She pressed closer. And for what it's worth, I'm falling too. His arms tightened around her. God help us both. No. She smiled against his chest. We help each other. That's how this works. When morning came, they were still tangled together, both exhausted and somehow more rested than they'd been in years. The sound of Thomas's feet on the stairs made them spring apart, laughing like guilty children. I should... Caleb gestured at the door. Yes? But Eliza caught his hand before he could leave. Tonight? Tonight, he promised. The next weeks were a strange combination of crisis and joy. During the days, they fought Patterson's machinations, filing their evidence, hiring a lawyer from Cheyenne, rallying support from other ranchers who'd been squeezed by the land baron. During the nights, they fell into each other with the desperation of people who'd been alone too long. They were careful around Thomas, maintaining separate rooms, but the boy wasn't stupid. He started calling Eliza Ma without anyone telling him to. Started holding both their hands when they walked. Started smiling more, laughing more, the way children do when the adults around them are happy. The court date was set for late January. In the meantime, winter closed in hard. The second storm hit right after Christmas, bigger than the first, and this time Eliza wasn't scared. She was prepared. They weathered it together, the three of them, plus the ranch hands in the bunkhouse, all hunkered down while the world outside tried to kill them. And when it passed, when they dug out into a world made of white silence, Eliza felt something settle in her chest. She was home. Really, truly home. On New Year's Eve, after Thomas was asleep, Caleb found her in the kitchen. Come with me, he said. He led her to Sarah's old sewing room, the room that had been locked since Eliza arrived. Inside, he'd cleared everything out. The fabric, the rocking chair, the half-finished quilt, all of it gone. I should have done this years ago, he said quietly. But I was holding on to something that didn't exist anymore. Caleb, I'm letting her go, Eliza. Not forgetting, but letting go. He turned to her. Because I want to make room for something new. For us. She couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple gold ring. It was my grandmother's, not fancy, but it's real. He took her hand. Eliza Rourke, will you marry me? Actually marry me. Not an arrangement, not a transaction, a real marriage. We're already married, she managed. In name, I'm asking for more than that. His eyes searched hers. I'm asking for everything. Your heart, your trust, your future. Will you give them to me? Yes. The word came out choked with tears. Yes, you stubborn, impossible man. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. Then he kissed her, and outside the wind howled, but inside they were warm. They'd stopped pretending, stopped holding back. What began as desperation had become something neither of them expected, something worth fighting for. The courthouse in Cheyenne was bigger than Eliza expected, imposing stone walls and high windows that let in gray winter light. She sat in the gallery beside Helen, hands folded in her lap, watching Caleb confer with their lawyer at the front table. Patterson sat across the aisle, flanked by two attorneys in expensive suits, looking supremely confident. "He thinks he's already won," Helen whispered. "Let him think that," Eliza replied. The judge entered, a stern woman in her 60s named Morrison, and the room fell silent. Eliza had done her research. Judge Morrison had a reputation for fairness and zero tolerance for theatrics. The Simmons lawyer went first, laying out their claim in flowery language about historical boundaries and natural watercourses. He produced their 1867 survey, speaking with the confidence of someone who believed maps didn't lie. Then it was their turn. Their lawyer, a sharp young man named Davis from Cheyenne, stood and began methodically dismantling the Simmons case. He presented Old Tom's maps showing the river's original course, the Army Corps documentation of the 1856 flood, and testimony from 3 other longtime residents who corroborated the timeline. "The river shifted 30 years ago," Davis said clearly. "The Simmons claim is based on outdated information. The current channel has run through the Rourke property for 3 decades. That makes it legally his." Patterson's lawyer objected, something about adverse possession and prior rights. Judge Morrison shut him down with a look that could freeze fire. "I'll hear from Mr. Bridger," she said. Old Tom took the stand, looking uncomfortable in his Sunday clothes, but speaking with the authority of someone who'd seen it all. He described the flood in precise detail, marked dates on maps, never wavered under cross-examination. "And you're certain about these dates?" the Simmons lawyer pressed. "Son, I was surveying this territory before you were born. I'm certain." A ripple of laughter ran through the gallery. Judge Morrison's mouth twitched. When Tom stepped down, Eliza caught Caleb's eye. He looked tense, wound tight as wire, but he managed a small nod. The judge called for a recess. Eliza followed Caleb and Davis into a small conference room. "How are we doing?" Caleb asked. "Better than expected." Davis shuffled papers. "Tom was excellent. Their case is falling apart." "Patterson looks too calm," Eliza said. "He's planning something." Both men turned to look at her. "What makes you say that?" Davis asked. "Because he's a snake. And snakes don't give up just because they're losing." She looked at Caleb. "What else does he have on you? Debts? Contracts? Anything he could use?" Caleb's face went carefully blank. "There's the bank loan." "What about it?" "It's due in March, $15,000. Eliza's stomach dropped. "Can we pay it?" "If we have a good spring calving season and cattle prices hold, maybe. And if we don't, the bank forecloses. Patterson's been buying up debt from the bank for months. If they foreclose, he buys the note and takes the ranch anyway." Eliza finished. "That's his backup plan." Davis swore softly. "He's boxing you in. Win or lose here, he still gets what he wants." "Not if we pay off the loan first," Eliza said. "With what money?" Caleb's voice was flat. "We're barely breaking even as it is." Her mind raced, sorting through possibilities. "What if we sold something? Land you don't need, equipment? Already mortgaged, all of it. Then we borrow from somewhere else, another bank, private lenders. Nobody's going to lend to a rancher who's already leveraged to his neck." Eliza stared at the table, thinking hard. There had to be a way. There was always a way. Then it hit her. "What about the timber rights?" she asked. Caleb frowned. "What timber rights?" "The north section. You mentioned once there's good timber there, but you've never harvested it because you needed it for windbreak. That timber's worth maybe $2,000-3,000. Not nearly enough." "But what if we sold the rights, not the timber itself? Lease them to a logging company for controlled harvest." She turned to Davis. "That's legal, right? We keep the land, they pay us for access?" Davis's eyes lit up. "Yes, and timber rights can be quite valuable if there's good access to rail." "The northern section borders the rail line," Caleb said slowly. "I never thought about—" "How fast can we arrange it?" Eliza asked Davis. "If I make some calls, maybe a week to get bids." "Do it." She looked at Caleb. "We're not giving Patterson the satisfaction." Something fierce and proud flashed across Caleb's face. No, we're not, court resumed. The judge heard closing arguments, then announced she'd deliver her decision in 3 days. They filed out into the cold afternoon, and Eliza saw Patterson watching them from across the courthouse steps. He approached with that snake oil smile. "Rourke, Mrs. Rourke, hell of a case you put on." "Thank you," Caleb said neutrally. "Of course, even if you win, there's still the matter of that bank loan." Patterson's smile widened. "March is coming faster than you think." "We'll manage," Eliza said before Caleb could respond. "Will you?" Patterson's eyes moved over her, assessing and dismissing. "You're a clever woman, Mrs. Rourke. Cleverer than poor Sarah, certainly, but cleverness doesn't pay bills." "No," Eliza agreed, "but it finds solutions. You should remember that." She took Caleb's arm and walked away, feeling Patterson's eyes on her back. On the train ride home, Caleb was quiet. Eliza sat beside him, watching snow-covered landscape roll past, thinking through numbers and possibilities. "You didn't have to do that," Caleb said finally. "Do what?" "Stand up to Patterson. That's my fight." "It's our fight." She squeezed his hand. "Get used to it." He was quiet for another moment, then, "The timber rights idea. That was smart. Let's hope it works. Even if it doesn't—" He turned to look at her. "You were magnificent today. Watching you think your way through problems, refuse to back down. I've never seen anything like it." Heat crept up her neck. "I'm just doing what needs doing." "No, you're doing what I should have done years ago, fighting instead of just enduring." His hand tightened on hers. "You've changed everything, Eliza. The ranch, Thomas, me. Everything's different now." "Better different or worse different?" "Better. So much better it scares me." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Good. We can be scared together." Davis worked fast. Within a week, he'd arranged meetings with 3 logging companies. The best offer came from a Denver outfit, $5,000 up front for 10-year harvest rights, with royalties on timber sold. Combined with their savings and a small loan from Dr. Chen, who turned out to have money put aside and a soft spot for stubborn women, they could cover the bank payment. The judge's decision came down on a Friday. Water rights belonged to Caleb Rourke, based on the current river course and 30 years of continuous use. The Simmons claim was denied. They celebrated that night with a small dinner, Caleb, Eliza, Thomas, and the ranch hands. Nothing fancy, just roasted chicken and potatoes, and a sense of having won something that mattered. "Does this mean we get to keep the ranch?" Thomas asked, gnawing on a drumstick. "Yes," Caleb said, "we keep it. Because Ma's smart?" Eliza's heart caught on that word. Ma. Thomas said it so casually now, like it had always been true. "Because we all work together," she managed. After Thomas was in bed, Eliza found Caleb in the barn, checking on the horses. Snow was falling outside, soft and steady. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much in my head." He turned to face her. "I keep thinking about what you said to Patterson, that cleverness finds solutions." So you found solutions I never would have seen. The timber rights, the way you handled the ranch hands, even standing up to those church women." He moved closer. "You're not just surviving here, Eliza. You're thriving. And you're making everyone around you better. I'm making mistakes too. Helen had to show me 3 times how to preserve meat properly. I burned an entire batch of bread last week." "I'm not talking about bread." He cupped her face in his hands. "I'm talking about this. Us. The way you've taken this broken house and made it a home. The way you look at Thomas like he's yours. The way you fight for this place like it matters. It does matter. To you, maybe. But why? You could have had an easier life. Married someone in Missouri who'd treat you like a lady, give you a comfortable home. I don't want comfortable." The words came out fierce. "I want this. The work, the struggle, the challenge. I want to build something that matters. I want—" She stopped, searching for words. "What?" His voice was low, intense. "I want to be more than I was." She met his eyes. "In Missouri, I was nobody. The forgotten daughter. But here I'm needed. Important. I make decisions that affect people's lives. And yes, it's hard and scary, and sometimes I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'd rather fail at something meaningful than succeed at being invisible." He kissed her then, hard and desperate, and full of everything he couldn't say. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. "You're not invisible," he whispered. "You're the brightest thing I've ever seen." They made it back to the house somehow, stumbling through snow, laughing like drunk people. Inside, he pulled her upstairs, not to her room this time, but to his. "Stay," he said. Not a question. She stayed. Spring came slowly, fighting winter for every inch. The timber company started their work on the north section, careful and controlled like they'd promised. The money went straight to the bank, clearing the loan with enough left over to buy new equipment and expand the herd. Patterson tried one more move, spreading rumors that Caleb had gotten the timber money through fraud, that old Tom had lied on the stand, that the whole case was a setup. But nobody listened. The judge had ruled the money was clean and the Wind River Ranch was thriving. Then Patterson made his final mistake. He showed up at the ranch one afternoon in early April, drunk and furious, demanding to see Caleb. Eliza was alone. Caleb was out checking fence lines, Thomas at school. The ranch hands were working the far pastures. "Where is he?" Patterson demanded, swaying in his saddle. "Not here." Eliza stood on the porch, hand resting on the rifle she'd learned to use. "You should leave, Mr. Patterson." "Should I?" He dismounted clumsily. "You've cost me a lot of money, Mrs. Rourke. That ranch should have been mine." "It was never yours. Everything in this valley is mine." His voice rose. "I built this territory. I brought civilization here. And now some mail-order whore thinks she can—" The rifle came up before Eliza even thought about it, aimed steady at his chest. "Finish that sentence," she said quietly. "I dare you." Patterson froze, eyes widening. For the first time she saw fear on his face. "You won't shoot me," he said, but his voice wavered. "Won't I? You're drunk, on my property, threatening me. I'd be within my rights." She took a step forward, rifle never wavering. "But I'll give you a choice. Get back on your horse and ride away. Or find out if I'm bluffing." A long, tense moment. Then Patterson backed toward his horse, hands raised. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is." Eliza's voice was steel. "You lost. The ranch is ours, the water rights are ours, and you have no more moves to make. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. And you're going to stay away from my family, my ranch, and my town. Because if you come back here, if you threaten anyone I care about again, I won't hesitate. Understand?" He mounted his horse, still staring at her. "I said, do you understand?" "Yes." The word came out strangled. "Good. Now get off my land." He rode away at a gallop. Eliza stood on the porch, rifle still raised, until he disappeared over the hill. Then her legs gave out, and she sat down hard, shaking. That was how Caleb found her 20 minutes later, sitting on the porch steps, rifle across her knees, crying and laughing at the same time. "What happened?" He was off his horse before it stopped moving, kneeling beside her. "Eliza, what?" She told him everything, watched his face go from concern to fury to something like awe. "You held him at gunpoint," he said. "Yes." "And threatened to shoot him?" "Yes." "Would you have done it?" She thought about that. "I don't know. Maybe. If he'd tried to hurt me, yes, absolutely." Caleb started laughing, great booming laughs that echoed across the yard. "You're insane, you know that?" "Probably." He pulled her to her feet, rifle and all, and kissed her hard. "You're also the most magnificent woman I've ever met." I was terrified. Didn't look it. He took the rifle, checked the safety, leaned it against the porch rail. "Patterson won't bother us again. You scared him worse than any court ruling could." "How do you know?" "Because you showed him you're not afraid, and men like him only understand power." He cupped her face. "You're powerful, Eliza Rourke, more than you know." Word spread fast. By Sunday, everyone in Wind River had heard about the confrontation. The church ladies who'd whispered about Eliza now whispered with grudging respect. The ranch hands started calling her boss lady when they thought she couldn't hear. Even the men who'd ignored her before tipped their hats when she came to town. Dr. Chen found her at the general store, grinning like a cat. "I heard you faced down Patterson with a rifle." "News travels fast. In this town, always." Dr. Chen's smile softened. "I also heard you didn't shoot him. That took more strength than pulling the trigger would have." "I wanted to," Eliza admitted. "Of course you did. He's a bastard. But you made the right choice." She squeezed Eliza's arm. You're good for this place. Good for Caleb. Good for all of us. At home, things shifted in quieter ways. Thomas started asking Eliza's opinion on everything: what to wear, how to handle a bully at school, whether a rock he'd found was special. Caleb deferred to her on household decisions, ranch finances, even hiring choices. You're better at reading people than I am, he admitted one night over the account books. I'm really not. You are. You saw through Patterson from the start, knew exactly how to handle Javier and the kid, even figured out which logging company to trust. He looked at her over the ledger. I used to make all these decisions alone. Now I wait to hear what you think, because your judgment's better than mine. That's not true. It is. He reached across the table, taking her hand. You see things I miss. Connections, possibilities, problems before they happen. This ranch is better because of you. I'm better because of you. Heat crept up her neck. You were doing fine before I got here. I was surviving. There's a difference. He squeezed her hand. I love you, Eliza. I don't say it enough, but I do. You've changed everything. I love you too. The words still felt new in her mouth, precious. Even when you're stubborn and impossible. Especially then? Especially then. May brought warmer weather and new calves. The herd was growing, the ranch was profitable, and for the first time in years, Caleb looked at the future without fear. One afternoon, Eliza was in the garden. Another project she'd started, turning a patch of bare ground into something useful, when a wagon rolled up the drive. She didn't recognize the driver until he got closer. Her stomach dropped. It was James, her mother's hired man from Missouri. She stood slowly, dirt on her hands, heart hammering. James? Miss Eliza. He climbed down from the wagon, hat in hands. Your mother sent me. It's your sister, Caroline. Fear shot through her. What happened? She's ill. Real bad. Started as a cough, turned into something worse. Doctor says it's pneumonia. James's face was grim. Your mother's asking if you could come home. Just for a bit. Caroline's been asking for you. Eliza's mind spun. Caroline. Her beautiful, thoughtless sister who'd started this whole mess with her cruel joke. She should feel satisfaction. Justice. Instead, she felt sick. How long does she have? The question came out flat. Doctor doesn't know. Could be days. Could be weeks. James shifted uncomfortably. Your mother said to tell you she's sorry for everything. She wants to make things right. After all this time, now she's sorry? People change when death comes knocking. James met her eyes. I'm not saying you should go, just delivering the message. Caleb appeared from the barn, taking in the scene. What's going on? Eliza explained quickly. Watched his face close off. You want to go, he said. Not a question. I don't know what I want. She looked at her hands, at the garden she'd been planting, at the life she'd built. Part of me thinks they don't deserve anything from me, after everything they did, but she's your sister. Yes. Caleb was quiet for a moment, then, I'll come with you. What? You think I'm letting you face them alone? He moved closer. We'll go together, take Thomas, make a trip of it. You can see your family, and I can show them exactly what they gave up when they mocked you. Something fierce and grateful swelled in Eliza's chest. You'd do that? You're my wife. Where you go, I go. He turned to James. When does she need to leave? Soon as possible. We'll catch the train tomorrow. The journey east felt surreal, retracing the route Eliza had taken 8 months ago, but in reverse. Everything looked different now, smaller, less intimidating. She was different too. Thomas pressed his face to the train window, asking endless questions. Caleb sat beside Eliza, solid and steady, hand linked with hers. You nervous? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. Good, me too. Why are you nervous? Because I'm about to meet the people who hurt you, and I'm trying real hard not to say something that'll make it worse. She squeezed his hand. Just be yourself. That's enough. Missouri was greener than she remembered, softer. The train pulled into the familiar station, and Eliza's heart clenched. James met them with the wagon, and they rode toward the farmhouse in silence. It looked exactly the same, but also completely different, like seeing a childhood home through adult eyes. Her mother waited on the porch, older, grayer, smaller somehow. Her eyes widened when she saw Eliza climb down from the wagon, Caleb beside her, Thomas holding both their hands. "Eliza?" Her mother's voice cracked. "You came. You asked me to." Eliza stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, not ready to go closer. "How is she?" "Weak, sleeping most of the time." Her mother's eyes moved over Caleb, assessing. "You must be Mr. Rourke." "Ma'am." Caleb's voice was cool, polite. "And this is Thomas, my son." Caleb's hand rested on the boy's shoulder. "Your grandson, I suppose." Her mother's face crumpled slightly at that. "Won't you come inside? All of you?" The house was smaller than Eliza remembered, darker. She stood in the parlor that had once seemed so fine and saw the worn furniture, the faded curtains, the genteel poverty her family had been hiding. Margaret appeared from the kitchen, stopping short when she saw them. "Eliza, you came?" "Where's Caroline?" "Upstairs." "But Eliza, you should know, she looks bad. Real bad." Eliza climbed the stairs to the bedroom she'd shared with her sisters. Caroline lay in the bed they'd once fought over, pale and thin, breathing shallow. Ruth sat beside her, looking exhausted. "Eliza," Ruth whispered. "Thank heaven." Caroline's eyes opened. It took her a moment to focus. "Liza." "I'm here." Eliza moved to the bedside, taking her sister's hand. It felt like bird bones, fragile and light. "I'm sorry." Caroline's voice was barely audible. "For everything. The advertisement, the jokes, the way we treated you. I'm so sorry." "Hush. Save your strength." "No, I need to say it." Caroline's grip tightened. "You were right to leave. Right to choose your own life. I was jealous, I think. Jealous that you had the courage to go." Tears burned Eliza's eyes. "You can still go. Get better and go wherever you want." "Maybe," but they both heard the lie. Eliza stayed by Caroline's side for 2 days, reading to her, holding her hand, talking about Wyoming and the ranch and this life she'd built. Her mother and sisters hovered, shocked into silence by the transformation. Not in Eliza's appearance, which was still plain, but in her bearing. She carried herself differently now, spoke with authority, commanded space. On the 3rd day, Caleb found Eliza in the garden. "Your mother wants to talk to you," he said. They gathered in the parlor, Eliza, her mother, Margaret, and Ruth. Caroline was sleeping upstairs, Thomas with Caleb in the yard. "I owe you an apology," her mother began. "A real one, for treating you like you didn't matter, like you were less than your sisters." "You did treat me that way," Eliza said quietly. "I know." Her mother's hands twisted in her lap. "And I was wrong. You were never less. I just didn't see your strength because it wasn't the kind I understood." Margaret spoke up, surprising everyone. "You were always the smartest of us, the most capable. We mocked you because it was easier than admitting we were jealous." "Jealous?" Eliza laughed, but without humor. "Of what?" "Of how little you needed anyone else. How you could just decide to leave and actually do it." Ruth's voice was soft. "We're all still here, doing exactly what we've always done. You're the only one who changed anything." Eliza looked at her sisters, these beautiful women who'd once seemed like everything she could never be, and saw them clearly for the first time. They weren't happy. They'd never been happy. They'd just been better at pretending. "I don't need your apologies," she said finally, "but I'll accept them anyway, because holding on to anger takes too much energy." Her mother stood, crossed to Eliza, and pulled her into a fierce hug. "I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm so proud of who you've become." Eliza let herself be held, feeling something old and painful finally release. Caroline died 3 days later, peacefully, with her family around her. They buried her in the family plot, and Eliza stood at the graveside thinking about cruelty and forgiveness and how complicated love could be. At the train station, saying goodbye, her mother pressed a small bag into Eliza's hands. "What's this?" "The pearl earrings, the ones I wouldn't give you before." Her mother's eyes were wet. "They're yours now. They were always meant to be yours." Eliza looked at the pearls. Beautiful, useless things she'd once wanted so badly. Now they just seem sad. Keep them, she said gently. Give them to Margaret or Ruth. I don't need them anymore. On the train heading west, Thomas asleep against her shoulder, Caleb's hand in hers, Eliza watched Missouri disappear behind them and felt nothing but relief. You all right? Caleb asked. Yes, actually I am. She leaned into him. I made peace with it. All of it. And now I'm ready to go home. To Wyoming? To our life, she smiled. To everything we're building together. He kissed her temple. Then let's go build it. Wyoming greeted them with a late spring storm. Snow mixed with rain, wind that rattled the train windows. Thomas pressed his face to the glass, excited to be home, while Eliza watched the familiar landscape emerge from the gray weather and felt something settle deep in her bones. This was home. Not the place she'd left, but the place she'd chosen. Mike met them at the station with the wagon, his weathered face creasing into something almost like a smile when he saw them. Good trip? He asked, loading their bags. Long, Caleb said. How are things here? Ran smooth. Javier handled the calving. Only lost 2. Mike glanced at Eliza. Helen's been asking after you. Said to tell you the women's meeting is Tuesday if you're back in time. Eliza blinked. The women's meeting? Church ladies. They want you on the planning committee for the summer social. Mike's expression was carefully neutral. Helen said to tell you it's not a request. A year ago, those same women had whispered about her behind their hands. Now they wanted her on committees. The irony wasn't lost on Eliza. The ranch looked different as they crested the final hill. The new barn stood where the old one had burned, bigger, better built. The house had fresh paint. Even the fence lines looked straighter, more permanent. We made some improvements while you were gone, Caleb said, watching her face. Hope you don't mind. Why would I mind? It's your home too. Should have asked first. She looked at him, this man who still thought he needed permission to improve his own property. Caleb, this ranch is as much yours as it is mine. You don't need to ask. Old habits. He helped her down from the wagon. Sarah used to get angry when I changed things without consulting her. I'm not Sarah. No. He pulled her close, right there in front of Mike and Thomas and anyone who might be watching. You're not. Thank the stars for that. That night after Thomas was asleep and they lay tangled together in Caleb's bed, their bed now, no more pretending otherwise. He traced patterns on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? She asked. How close I came to losing this. You. All of it. His voice was quiet in the darkness. If Patterson had succeeded, if we'd lost the water rights case or couldn't pay the bank, but we didn't. We won. Because of you? His arm tightened around her. I keep trying to figure out how to say this right. How to tell you what you've done for me, for Thomas, for this whole place. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He shifted to look at her, propping himself on one elbow. Before you came, I was just existing, going through motions. The ranch was work. Thomas was duty. And every day felt like punishment for failing Sarah. Caleb, let me finish. His hand cupped her face. You showed me how to live again. How to fight for something instead of just enduring it. You turned this house into a home, made my son happy, saved the ranch with ideas I never would have thought of. You took everything broken and made it whole. Tears burned her eyes. I didn't do it alone. No, but you started it. You had the courage to walk away from everything familiar and build something new. That takes strength I didn't know existed. She kissed him, tasting salt from her own tears, feeling his heartbeat steady against her chest. When they broke apart, she whispered, We saved each other. That's the truth. Then I'm the luckiest man alive. Summer came hard and fast, the way it did in Wyoming. Fierce sun following fierce storms, everything growing in bursts. Eliza's garden flourished, providing vegetables for the house and enough extra to sell in town. She'd started keeping chickens too, much to Thomas's delight, and the boys spent hours talking to them like they were people. Ma says chickens are good listeners, he told Javier one afternoon, completely serious. Javier caught Eliza's eye and grinned. Your ma's a smart woman. The ranch hands had stopped treating her like an outsider months ago. Now they came to her with problems, requests for time off, complaints about equipment, even personal troubles. She'd become the heart of the operation without quite realizing it, the person everyone turned to when things needed fixing. One afternoon in July, Dr. Chen showed up unannounced, riding in on her sturdy mare. "I need your help," she said without preamble. "With what?" "Teaching. The school teacher is leaving, pregnant, heading back east to her family. We need someone to take over until we can hire a replacement." Dr. Chen dismounted, tying her horse to the rail. "I suggested you." Eliza stared. "I'm not a teacher." "You can read and write better than half the territory. You've got patience, intelligence, and you don't take nonsense from anyone." Dr. Chen smiled. "Plus, Thomas would love having his mother as teacher." "I don't know anything about teaching. Neither did Mrs. Patterson when she started, and she managed for 6 years. Dr. Chen's expression turned serious. "Eliza, this town needs you. These children need someone who'll actually care whether they learn. Will you at least think about it?" Eliza thought about it that night, lying next to Caleb, staring at the ceiling. "You should do it," he said. "You don't think it's too much? Managing the house, helping with the ranch, and teaching? I think you could run this entire territory if someone gave you the chance." He rolled to face her. "You're always saying you want to build something that matters. What matters more than teaching children?" "But Thomas would be so proud of you he'd probably burst." Caleb smiled. "Do it, Eliza. Show this town what you're capable of." So she did. The schoolhouse was small, 1 room, 20 students ranging from 6 to 14. Eliza stood at the front on her first day looking at their faces, some curious, some skeptical, some openly hostile, and felt her stomach clench. Then Thomas, sitting in the front row, gave her a huge grin and a thumbs up. She could do this. "Good morning," she said, voice steady. "My name is Mrs. Rourke, and I'm your teacher until we find someone permanent. I know some of you are wondering if I'm qualified. The answer is no, not really, but I can read, write, and do mathematics. And more importantly, I care whether you learn. So here's how this works. You give me your best effort, and I'll give you mine. Fair?" A girl in the back raised her hand. "What if we don't want to give our best effort? Then you'll sit here bored while everyone else learns interesting things." Eliza smiled. "Your choice." It wasn't easy. Some days the older boys tested her, pushing boundaries until she had to pull out the same steel spine she'd used on Patterson. Other days the younger children struggled with concepts she thought were simple, and she had to find new ways to explain. But she loved it. Loved watching understanding dawn on a child's face. Loved the way Thomas beamed every time she praised his work. Loved feeling useful in a way that went beyond cooking and cleaning. One afternoon, she was helping a struggling student with arithmetic when Mrs. Patterson, the former queen bee of the church ladies, appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Rourke, may I have a word?" Eliza's stomach tightened, but she dismissed the students for recess and turned to face the woman who'd once mocked her. "How can I help you, Mrs. Patterson?" "I wanted to apologize." The words came out stiff, clearly difficult. "For how I treated you when you first arrived. It was unkind." "Yes, it was." Mrs. Patterson blinked, clearly expecting polite deflection. Yes. Well, I'm sorry." "Why now?" Eliza asked. "Why apologize after all this time?" "Because my daughter comes home every day talking about how much she loves school, about how Mrs. Rourke makes learning fun, how you helped her understand fractions, how you never make her feel stupid." Mrs. Patterson's voice softened. "She's never liked school before. You've given her something precious." Eliza felt her anger dissolve. "Your daughter is very bright. She just needed someone to believe in her." "Like you needed someone to believe in you?" The question hung between them. "Yes," Eliza said quietly. "Like that." Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly. "Harold, my husband, he's not a bad man, just ambitious, ruthless sometimes. After what you did, standing up to him with that rifle, he's been different, quieter. I think you scared something fundamental into him." "I didn't mean to—" "Don't apologize. He needed it." She moved toward the door, then paused. "You've changed this town, Mrs. Rourke. Made it better. I wanted you to know that." After she left, Eliza stood in the empty schoolhouse, processing. She'd come here expecting nothing, wanting only escape. Instead, she'd built something that mattered, not just for herself, but for everyone around her. That night at dinner, Thomas announced, "Billy Parker says his ma says you're the best teacher Wind River ever had." Billy Parker's ma is very kind, Eliza said, hiding a smile. It's true, though. Thomas speared a potato with his fork. You make school not boring. High praise, Caleb murmured, eyes dancing. Pa, can Ma teach forever, even after they find someone permanent? Caleb looked at Eliza. That's up to your ma. Eliza thought about it, really thought about it. Teaching meant less time for ranch work, less time for the house, more responsibility. But it also meant purpose beyond these four walls. It meant shaping young minds, giving children opportunities they might not otherwise have. I'd like to keep teaching, she said. If the town will have me, they'll have you, Caleb said with certainty. They'd be fools not to. August brought the summer social, the event Eliza had been drafted onto the planning committee for. It was held in the church hall with food and music and dancing that lasted until midnight. Eliza wore a new dress, nothing fancy but well made, courtesy of fabric Dr. Chen had helped her choose. She stood on the edge of the crowd, watching couples dance, when Caleb appeared at her elbow. Dance with me, he said. I don't know how. Neither do I. We'll figure it out. He pulled her onto the floor, and they moved clumsily through some approximation of a waltz, both laughing at their own incompetence. Around them, Eliza saw the townspeople watching, but not with mockery this time, with affection, approval. She'd become one of them. Happy? Caleb asked, pulling her closer than was probably proper. Terrifyingly so. She looked up at him. Sometimes I wake up afraid this is all a dream, that I'll be back in Missouri, still invisible, still nobody. You were never nobody. His voice was fierce. They were just too blind to see what was right in front of them. Maybe. Or maybe I needed to leave to become someone worth seeing. He stopped dancing right there in the middle of the floor and kissed her. Long and deep and completely inappropriate for a church social. When he pulled back, half the room was staring. Eliza felt her face burn. Caleb, everyone's watching. Good, let them watch. He kept his arms around her. Let them see how much I love my wife, how proud I am of everything she's accomplished, how she took a broken man and a failing ranch and turned both into something worth having. I didn't do it alone, no. But you started it. You had the courage. He touched her face. You're the bravest person I know, Eliza Rourke. Around them, someone started clapping. Then another person and another until the whole room erupted in applause. Eliza stood there, overwhelmed, as the entire town of Wind River celebrated her. Later, sitting outside in the cool night air, Helen joined her on the church steps. Quite a moment in there, Helen said. I don't know what to do with all this, Eliza admitted. The respect, the admiration. A year ago, these same people whispered about me. A year ago, you were a stranger. Now you're one of us. Helen looked at her. You know what changed? You stopped waiting for permission to matter. You just started mattering. Is it really that simple? Sometimes. Helen stood, brushing off her skirt. Most people spend their whole lives waiting for someone to tell them they're enough. You decided you were enough and acted like it. That's power, Eliza. Real power. Fall came with the first frost, painting the mountains gold and red. The ranch had its best year on record, cattle thriving, timber royalties rolling in, debts paid down to almost nothing. Caleb started talking about expansion, buying adjoining land, building a bigger house. We could have a real parlor, he said one night, sketching plans on scrap paper. And a proper study for you, guest rooms for when your family visits. My family's not visiting, Eliza said mildly. They might. Margaret sent another letter. It was true. Her younger sister had been writing regularly since Caroline's death, tentative letters asking about Wyoming, about ranch life, about whether Eliza thought Margaret could make it out west. What should I tell her? Eliza asked. Tell her the truth, that it's hard and beautiful and unforgiving, that you have to be stronger than you think you are, that it'll test everything you thought you knew about yourself. Caleb looked up from his drawings. But also tell her it's worth it. Eliza wrote back that night, choosing her words carefully. She didn't sugarcoat anything, told Margaret about the brutal winters, the endless work, the isolation. But she also told her about the freedom, the possibility, the way Wyoming let you become whoever you were brave enough to be. She ended the letter with, if you come, come for yourself. Not to escape, not to chase romance, but to build something real. That's the only way it works. Winter returned as it always did, but this time Eliza was ready. The house was warm and weatherproof, the storeroom stocked, the cattle secured in near pastures. When the first big storm hit in November, they barely noticed, just hunkered down together, playing cards and reading books and being family. Thomas turned 8 on a cold December day. They celebrated with cake and presents, and when Eliza gave him the books she'd ordered from Denver, his face lit up like sunrise. For me? All of them? All of them. I thought my son should have his own library. The words slipped out naturally. My son. Caleb caught her eye across the table, and the look on his face made her throat tight. That night, after Thomas was asleep, Caleb found her in the kitchen. He started calling you Ma full time now, he said. Even when you're not around. Yesterday he told Javier, my Ma, like it's the most natural thing in the world. Does that bother you? Bother me? He pulled her close. Eliza, it's one of the best things that's ever happened. Watching him have a mother again, seeing how much he loves you. His voice cracked. You've given him something I couldn't. You gave him everything. I just added to it. You gave him a family. He kissed her forehead. You gave us both a family. They stood there in the warm kitchen, holding each other, and Eliza thought about how far she'd come. From invisible daughter to ranch wife to teacher to mother. Each role building on the last, each one revealing strength she hadn't known she possessed. Spring came again, completing a full year of seasons. The ranch hands prepared for calving, the school year continued, and life moved in the rhythms Eliza had learned to anticipate. One morning in late March, she woke feeling nauseated. It passed quickly, but returned the next day. And the next. Dr. Chen confirmed it a week later, eyes twinkling. You're pregnant. About 6 weeks, I'd say. Eliza sat in stunned silence. Is this good news? Dr. Chen asked gently. Yes, I think so. She laughed shakily. I didn't think it would happen. Why not? You're healthy, young enough, clearly not having trouble in the bedroom. Dr. Chen grinned at Eliza's blush. This is good news. Caleb will be over the moon. But telling Caleb turned out to be harder than expected. She waited for the right moment, then couldn't find it. Finally, one evening when Thomas was at a friend's house, she just blurted it out. I'm pregnant. Caleb froze, coffee cup halfway to his mouth. What? Pregnant. Dr. Chen confirmed it. About 6 weeks. The cup clattered onto the table. For a long moment, Caleb just stared at her. Then his face crumpled, and he started crying. Great gasping sobs that shook his whole body. Eliza rushed to him, terrified. Caleb, what's wrong? If you don't want? He grabbed her hands, tears streaming down his face. Eliza, I thought I'd never have this again. Another child, a family. After Sarah, he couldn't finish. Hey, she knelt in front of him, wiping his tears. We're going to be fine, all of us. You can't know that. No, but I can choose to believe it. She pressed his hand to her still flat stomach. This baby is wanted and loved. That's a good start. He kissed her then, tasting of salt and coffee and hope. I'm terrified. Me too. But we're terrified together. Thomas took the news with characteristic enthusiasm, immediately planning everything the baby would need and announcing to everyone in town that he was going to be a big brother. The pregnancy was normal, uncomfortable at times, exhausting often, but Dr. Chen said everything looked healthy. Eliza kept teaching until she started showing too much, then stayed home and helped manage the ranch finances from the kitchen table. Summer brought heat, and her belly swelling until she felt like a barn. Caleb hovered constantly, driving her crazy with concern. I'm pregnant, not dying, she snapped one afternoon when he tried to stop her from hanging laundry. I know, but nothing. I'm fine. The baby's fine. Stop treating me like I'll break. He backed off, hands raised in surrender. But she caught him watching her sometimes with an expression of such raw fear that it broke her heart. One night in early August, she woke him from sleep. Talk to me, she said, about what you're really afraid of. In the darkness, he was silent for a long time. Then, that I'll lose you like I lost her, that this baby will take you from me, that I'll be alone again with 2 children and no idea how to be enough for them. That's not going to happen. You don't know that. Sarah was fine until she wasn't. One day she was pregnant and complaining about back pain. The next she was dying and there was nothing I could do. I'm not Sarah. Eliza's voice was firm. My body is different. This pregnancy is different. And if something does go wrong, Dr. Chen is 10 times better prepared than whoever delivered Sarah. We have options now. But no buts. She took his face in her hands. Caleb, I need you to trust me. Trust that I know my own body. Trust that I'll ask for help if I need it. Can you do that? He exhaled shakily. I'll try. Good. Because this baby is coming whether we're ready or not, and I need you present for it, not paralyzed by fear. The labor started on a cool September morning, almost 2 weeks before Dr. Chen expected. Caleb immediately went white, but Eliza stayed calm. Send Thomas to Helen's, she directed. Then get Dr. Chen. Don't rush. We have time. The labor lasted 14 hours. Long, painful, exhausting hours where Eliza understood viscerally why women died doing this. But Dr. Chen was competent and encouraging, and Caleb held her hand through every contraction, whispering reassurances even though his face was gray with terror. Finally, as the sun set, a baby's cry filled the room. It's a girl, Dr. Chen announced, laying the squirming, angry bundle on Eliza's chest. Eliza looked down at her daughter, red-faced and furious and absolutely perfect, and felt everything inside her rearrange. This tiny person, this miracle, was hers. She's beautiful, Caleb whispered, touching the baby's head with one finger. Perfect. She's angry, Eliza laughed, exhausted. Already mad at the world. She'll fit right in with this family, then. They named her Catherine, after Caleb's grandmother. She had his gray eyes and Eliza's stubborn chin, and from day one she ruled the household with an iron fist wrapped in soft baby skin. Thomas was instantly besotted, hovering over her cradle like a protective dragon. The ranch hands brought gifts, carved toys, soft blankets, promises to teach her to ride when she was old enough. Even Helen got misty-eyed holding her. You did good, Eliza, real good. But it was watching Caleb with his daughter that undid Eliza completely. The way he held her like she was made of glass, the way he sang off-key lullabies at 3 a.m, the way he looked at Eliza with such gratitude and love it made her ache. Thank you, he said one night, watching Catherine sleep in her cradle. For what? For this. For her. For giving me a second chance at everything I thought I'd lost. He pulled Eliza close. For being brave enough to say yes to a stranger's letter and stubborn enough to stay when it got hard. For turning my life into something worth living. We turned it into something worth living, she corrected. Together. Winter that year was mild. Or maybe it just felt that way because Eliza was too busy to notice. Catherine grew fast, smiling early, reaching for things with chubby hands. Thomas started helping with evening feeding, proud of his big brother duties. The ranch continued thriving. The school welcomed Eliza back after she was ready, and life settled into something that felt like contentment. One afternoon in early spring, just over 2 years since she'd stepped off that train, Eliza stood on the porch watching Caleb and Thomas work with a new colt. Catherine dozed in her arms, the picture of peace. Around her, the ranch bustled with familiar noise, the ranch hands calling to each other, cattle lowing in the distance, the wind rushing through the pines. This was her life, the one she'd built from nothing, from a cruel joke and a desperate gamble. Dr. Chen rode up, dismounting with practiced ease. Just checking on Catherine, making sure she's thriving. See for yourself. Eliza handed over the baby, who immediately grabbed Dr. Chen's finger. Strong grip. She's going to be tough. Dr. Chen smiled. Like her mother. I'm not tough. I'm just... Don't. Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. Don't diminish what you've accomplished. You came here with nothing. No support, no guarantee it would work, no safety net. And you built all this. She gestured at the ranch, the family, everything. That takes courage most people don't have. Eliza looked at the life surrounding her, messy and imperfect and absolutely real, and felt something settle deep in her chest. She hadn't changed who she was. She'd just stopped apologizing for it. That night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Caleb found her in the parlor, the real parlor now, the one they'd built last fall, with proper furniture and curtains and books lining the walls. What are you thinking about? He asked, settling beside her. How different everything is from what I expected. She leaned into him. When I got on that train, I thought I was escaping, running away from being nobody. And now? Now I know I was never nobody. I was just in the wrong place, surrounded by people who couldn't see me. She looked at him. You saw me, Caleb. From the very first letter. You saw something worth having. I saw someone strong enough to survive anything. I just didn't know how strong until you got here and proved it every single day. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the house settle around them. Outside, Wyoming wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and possibility. Do you ever regret it? Eliza asked. Answering that advertisement? Taking a chance on a woman you'd never met? Every day, Caleb said seriously. Her heart stopped. What? I regret not finding you sooner. He smiled, pulling her closer. I regret all those years I spent thinking I was fine alone. I regret that you had to waste 23 years with people who didn't appreciate you, but answering that letter, marrying you, best decision I ever made. Eliza kissed him, slow and deep, tasting home and future and everything she'd never dared to hope for. I love you, she whispered. My impossible, stubborn, wonderful man. I love you too. He rested his forehead against hers. My fierce, brilliant, unstoppable wife. Years would pass. Catherine would grow up riding horses and reading books and refusing to let anyone tell her what she couldn't do. Thomas would take over ranch operations, proving himself every bit his father's son. The Wind River Ranch would expand, becoming one of the most successful operations in the territory. And Eliza would teach generations of children, shaping minds and hearts and futures. People would tell her story, the mail-order bride who became a force to be reckoned with. The plain daughter who proved worth wasn't measured in beauty. The woman who took a cruel joke and turned it into a legacy. But sitting there in her parlor, held by the man she loved, listening to her children breathe in their beds upstairs, Eliza knew the real truth. She hadn't become someone new. She'd just finally become herself. And that was worth everything. The woman no one wanted became the woman everyone needed. Not because she changed her face or became someone different, but because she stopped waiting for permission to matter and simply chose to matter instead. That was the only magic she'd ever needed.